We are back with a brand new video. What is good, Heat Nation? I feel like I haven't done one of these sit down videos and just talked about the Heat and potential moves that they can make to make their roster better. I feel like all my videos so far have been like reaction videos to games, which is really good, but I feel like this video could really give you guys some information as to who the Heat could potentially target. It's very early. It's only been 11 games. I don't expect the Heat to make any calls and trade for anyone like right now, but it would be helpful for me to inform you guys in the future as to, if this team continues to lose games and if we do not get to 500 soon enough, moves will be made. I'm pretty sure, they're going to give it 20-25 games, and if it's still not working, moves will be made. I'm convinced. So I feel like it's very helpful if I were to give you guys potential options that the Heat could trade for, especially at the power forward position, because I feel like that is really where the improvement is going to come from. I don't really think that they're going to trade for a guard. I don't think they're going to trade for a small forward. I don't think they're going to trade for anyone but a front court partner for Bam. And the reason is I feel like, the point guard position, Lowry, I don't really see them moving him, even though he's been kind of up and down this season, just because he's Jimmy's guy. And we are paying him a lot of money. Like, I just don't see him getting traded. I don't see Tyler obviously getting traded. There's no really star on the market unless Kevin Durant suddenly becomes available, which is a possibility. I think there's zero chance that Tyler gets traded. Obviously, we know Jimmy and Bam are safe. The only other spot in the starting lineup that could be upgraded is the 4 position. And this is not to say that Caleb has been playing bad, because he's been playing pretty well. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't been disappointed by Caleb's performance at all, but he's just playing out of position, and it's really hurting us at times, especially because he is very undersized. So we're going to be talking about potential front court partners next to Bam. Now, a lot of these guys are power forwards only, because I just don't see Bam, playing the 4. There is one exception, and I'm pretty sure you guys will all know who that is, because he's been in trade rumors for like the past year. So yeah, we'll get to all these players because there's a lot of players on my list. I think my list consists of 13 players, which is a ton. So I'm going to kind of group them by team though, because there are a couple of players that are on the same team. So for example, the first team we'll be talking about is the Washington Wizards, and I see 2 potential options that the Heat could go after. Now obviously, one of the players I'm talking about is Kyle Kuzma. Now Kyle Kuzma is having a very good season so far, and he's been playing pretty well for the Washington Wizards. And at 27 years old, he's not too old, but he's also not too young. He's currently in the prime of his years. We all know Kuz is a very skilled and talented player, and I've really loved the improvement of his defense since he's left LA. He's always been a good scorer, and I feel like he could definitely fill a void, not only him being a good shooter from 3, but also be a good rebounder for his position. He's been rebounding the ball exceptionally well this season, and I think that he is one of the premier options that we could target to partner with Bam Adebayo. Now, obviously, not all these trades are, some trades are more realistic than others, but I try to make this as realistic as possible. I'm not going to come out here and put Kevin Durant on this list, because I just don't know what's going to happen, or Giannis. Like, I'm talking about guys, because I don't believe we're going to get a star. They're going to have to all be quality role players, any improvements that we make. And Kyle Kuzma is one of those guys. Now, when you're talking about Kyle Kuzma's contract, he is currently making $13 million a year. So there is one thing with the Miami Heat as far as what contracts that they could move, and there aren't too many. Now, obviously, the biggest contract that they can move is Lowry. Again, I just don't think that's going to happen unless they continue to spiral and unless he plays terribly. Lowry's actually been playing pretty well over the past couple of games. But Duncan Robinson is the most obvious contract to get rid of in a trade. Now, obviously, Kuzma makes $13 million, Duncan Robinson makes $18 million. So if you were to throw in Duncan Robinson's contract, you would have to get an additional player from the Wizards in order to make the money match. If not for Duncan Robinson, this would probably be a pretty difficult trade for you to do, just because, we have a lot of big contracts and then we have a lot of small contracts. We don't really have anyone who's making like in that $5 to $10 million range. You know, we have a lot of guys apart from Caleb who I don't think they're gonna move. We don't really have guys who are making like a mediocre amount of money. We have guys who are getting paid a lot, you know, upwards of 15 mil, like Duncan and Tyler and Jimmy and Bam and Kyle. And we have a ton of guys like the undrafted guys, like Gabe and Max and Highsmith and Dedman and Yurtseven. These guys are not making too much money. Obviously, we have Caleb, who's making 6 mil, and we have the rookie Nikola Jovic, who I don't think is going to get traded. But if we were to trade for Kuzma, I just don't see how we would make up the money with all those small contracts, because he, like I said, he makes $13 million a year. So a trade for Kyle Kuzma, I think, would have to include Duncan Robinson's contract, and it force you to get an additional player back from Washington. It would also probably force you to give up draft capital, because as we all know, Duncan Robinson has pretty much negative value because of how big his contract is, and Kuzma has been a very solid performer this season. So again, I don't think this is the most realistic option as far as all the 14 or 13 that I have on the list. But it is definitely an option. I think it's something that the Heat should consider, because I think Kuzma would complement this team exceptionally well. Sticking with the Wizards, Rui Hachimura is the next name we're going to be talking about. He is a lot more easier to trade for. Currently, he's been averaging 11 points per game, 4 rebounds, and an assist. I really like Rui Hachimura's game. This is actually someone that I really wanted the Heat to land in the draft in 2019. Obviously, we got Hero. I'm more than happy with Tyler, and Rui went at 10 or 9 or something. But I've loved this guy since college. I think that he has a very unique style of play. I'm not saying, you know, he's the same as this guy, but he reminds me a lot of Kawhi with his mannerisms and his play style. He's very good in the mid-range area, extremely athletic, is expanding his range to be able to shoot the 3 now, and I think he's a very versatile defender. So I think Rui Hachimura, even though Kyle Kuzma has been performing better, Rui might be the trade to do if you're making a trade with the Wizards, because number one, he's very versatile, and he is extremely youthful. He's young, so he still has a lot more room to grow. And number two, his contract is a lot smaller, so you are able to make this trade a lot easier. He's only making about 4.9 or 5 or 6 million, somewhere in that range. I think he made 4.9 million last year. Probably is making about 6 million this year. Very easy to do. I think Haywood Highsmith's contract is an option for you to give up, because obviously Haywood Highsmith is, I'm pretty sure Haywood Highsmith's contract is like 3 years, 10 million or something like that. And if you were to give up Highsmith or Dedman, Highsmith and Dedman, I feel like this could work, because Haywood Highsmith is currently making about, I think, 2 point something million. Dedman is probably making about 2 million. You'd probably need to make up maybe $1 million or 2 million there. Maybe throw in Yurt if you want to, but then that would leave you with no backup center. So, but my point is that the Heat can make this happen. You know, this is a very simple trade to do because the money is so less, and it's not like a double-digit amount of money. Like, it's not 13 million like Kuzma, where you have to include Duncan because his contract is, you know, bigger, and we don't really have enough to make up 13. But we can make up 6 pretty easily. So, I think Hachimura is also a very good option. But we're gonna pivot away from the Wizards here and go to the Western Conference and talk about Jay Crowder, because Jay Crowder, as we all know, has been an option for I don't know how long now since he requested a trade. Now there is a complication to this, because as you guys may know, Cam Johnson has, I think, tore his MCL or something. I'm not sure what the exact injury is, but I'm pretty sure he's gonna be out for a while. And this might force Jay Crowder into the starting lineup. They might, you know, request Jay Crowder to come back. And the whole reason that Jay requested a trade was because he was not getting the starting minutes. And, you know, maybe he might, you know, cool down. He might say, you know what, I'm going to be starting in the place of Cam while he recovers from his injury. So, you know what, I'll stay in Phoenix. He might say that, but if he doesn't, again, he is an option. We all know what Jay can do. I don't really need to give him, you know, much of an introduction. We had him on the way to the finals in the bubble. He was a very good player for us in 2020, and someone that I actually wanted to re-sign. Unfortunately, he went to Phoenix, but there's an opportunity to get him back right now. He's making about 10 million a year. Again, I think that this could be done. But like I said, a lot of these trades can be done. It's just a matter of who the Heat want. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's very. I think the Jay Crowder trade, it can be done, but you would have to figure out if you want to throw in Duncan Robinson, because I think you would have to. Again, this is like Kyle Kuzma's deal, where it can be done, but it's not going to be as easy as maybe like someone who's making less than 10 million, like 5 million or 4 million. So Jay Crowder, again, I don't think you would need to throw in many picks or any picks at all, because he requested a trade, so his value is lower. Duncan Robinson, and then you get Jay Crowder plus maybe salary filler, which would be in the form of Landry Shamet or Torrey Craig. I think that would be a good deal for the Heat. If you were to get Shamet or Craig, you still have the shooting that you lost with Robinson there, because Shamet is a 3-point specialist as well. And then you get Jay Crowder, who is a very good power forward option for Miami. So yeah, Jay Crowder is another option for the Heat if they want to pursue him. We're going to stay in the West. I think all our remaining players except for one is in the West. So we're going to stay in the West and move to Sacramento, because we're going to be talking about Harrison Barnes. Now, Harrison Barnes and Duncan Robinson make the exact same amount of money, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's about 18-19 million. It's very, very similar. So this trade is not going to be a 1-for-1 though, because as we all know, Harrison Barnes is a lot better than Duncan right now, and his contract is a lot shorter. So draft capital would have to be involved. And I think Harrison Barnes would be a little more difficult to trade for, because the Kings might tell themselves that they're trying to compete for the playoffs, and they might try to keep Harrison Barnes on the roster. You never know. Obviously a trade is only going to be made if two teams are willing to do it. Now, the Heat could want Harrison Barnes as much as they want, but if the Kings want to keep him, then you can't do this trade, unfortunately. But it is very easy to match salary. I think it's probably the easiest way, because although you don't have to give up more than one player and you do have to give up picks, it's a straight 1-for-1 with probably a couple of picks going from the Heat to Sacramento. And yes, I do think it would take at least one pick to get off of Duncan Robinson's contract, because it is one of the worst of the NBA, just to be frank. So yeah, I think Harrison Barnes is definitely an option. Like I said, makes the same money as Duncan, so very easy to do. You would have to give up a pick probably, but this is only dependent on whether the Kings want to do this trade or not. So we'll see what happens. We'll go back east now and talk about PJ Washington, who I think has had a really good season so far. I think he's been playing very under the radar, which I think a lot of people are not talking about it, but he's had a very good start to the season. He's making, I think he has the same exact contract as Rui Hachimura. They were both in the same draft class. PJ was picked, I think, one spot before Tyler Hero. He was picked about 2 spots after Rui, so the contracts are very similar. And like I said, this trade can be done if you were to include Highsmith, Yurtseven, and some of these guys. So yeah, PJ Washington is definitely an option. And I think that, he was someone that I thought the Heat were trying to get last year. Unfortunately, they were not able to, but I think PJ Washington would fit really good on this team because of his ability to stretch the floor. He's an incredible shooter from 3. He can stretch the floor like not many other people can at that size, and I think he would fit great. Definitely improve our 3-point shooting. Defensively, he's not the best, but I think in the system we could make him look a lot better than what he is. So I would like PJ Washington, to be considered by the Heat. I think that would be a really good option. So we have about 6 teams remaining. We have one more player in the East, and this is the center option I'm talking about, because I said there was one center and I think the rest were going to be 4s. Miles Turner, you guys already knew it was coming. As we all know, he's been rumored to get traded for like ages now. Like, him and the Lakers have been in in rumors for I don't know how long, since they probably got Russ, to be honest. And even this season he's talked about the Lakers making a trade for him. The Heat, I think, should be able to swoop in if they want to. Now Turner, he makes about 18 million as well, so the contract with Duncan Robinson is very, very similar. Now, unfortunately, Turner is extremely, extremely good this season. Like, he's averaging 16, 8, 2, and I think you would probably have to throw in 2 first-rounders in order to get Miles Turner this season. I'm not even exaggerating, because that's how much better he's been playing than Duncan. And it's not like, you have to take his contract and hold it for 5 years like you do for Duncan. Duncan's contract, I don't know when Duncan's contract expires, but it's not anytime soon, because he just signed it 2 years ago. Miles Turner's on an expiring contract. So, the Heat, again, they could use that to their leverage and say, you're giving us a player on an expiring deal, so we don't have to give you 2 picks. But at the same time, you're forcing the Pacers to take Duncan Robinson's contract and hold it until it expires. And they're a rebuilding team, so that doesn't really benefit them in any way. They're after draft capital. They're going to look for 2 picks at least, in my opinion, because that's why the deal with the Lakers is not working, because the Lakers don't want to give up 2 picks and the Pacers want 2 picks. So yeah, I think that this trade can be done, but I think it would be very difficult to negotiate with Indiana, because I think they're going to want a lot more draft capital than we'd be willing to give up. So yeah, that is Miles Turner. Moving on to the Western Conference for the last 4 teams, we're going to move on to Dallas and talk about Dorian Finney-Smith. Now, Dorian Finney-Smith is an option. He's not really a 4, he's more of a 3, so I don't think this is the best option. He's having like a very bad season though. Like, he's not really shooting the best this season, and to be honest, like he hasn't been playing that well this season. Apart from defensively, he's been pretty good. Now, he just signed a contract extension last season, but I think he is eligible to get traded this season as well. Like, I think he's making currently $12 million, which is very similar to Kuz's deal. You would have to probably throw in Duncan, and it would be the same thing. Like, you would get Dorian Finney-Smith back, but you would also have to take on another salary filler. So yeah, Dorian Finney-Smith, it's probably not the best option. Like, if I were ranking these options, he would probably be like last or second to last. But it's not a terrible option. This is definitely something that the Heat could probably look into, especially because I think his value would be a lot lower than a lot of these other guys. But I think he would be more of like a last resort. Like, if you have nothing else, like, you can go for him, and he would still be a good fit on this team. It's just a matter of fact that he hasn't been playing well this season. Last 3 teams here, Kenyon Martin Jr. He's been playing pretty well this season, and he actually requested a trade in the offseason that didn't really go anywhere. And he is currently making about $2 million. So again, this is probably very easy to do. All you have to, we have a ton of guys who are making like 1.5 to 2 million. So all you have to do is just throw one of them in, maybe like a Yurtseven or something, and then I think that would be a good trade. Maybe they would want like a second or 2 seconds. It's very easy to trade for Kenyon Martin Jr. Extremely easy, because his contract is very small and the money is easy to match. And I think that he would be a very, very good fit. Like, his fit in Miami would be immaculate. He's a lob threat. He's improving his jump shot this season. I think he's shooting 36% from 3, which is not terrible. He's good defensively. I would love Kenyon Martin Jr. on this team. I think he would be an extremely good pickup if we were to land him. Last 2 teams, the Utah Jazz are a team that we're going to talk about because they have multiple options that we could go after. Kelly Olynyk, we all are familiar with Kelly. He's making about 13 mil. Jared Vanderbilt, who was actually linked to the Heat a couple of weeks ago, he's making about 4 mil. And then Rudy Gay, who's making about 6 mil. Now, Rudy Gay is probably like the bottom of the list if I were to rank these guys. I would love Jared Vanderbilt in Miami. I think defensively that would be elite. Like, Jared Vanderbilt's not like the best shooter or anything, but defensively, like, he can guard 1 through 5 easily. Like, he's one of the best defenders in the NBA. So that would be like my number 1 priority if you were to deal with Utah. Olynyk would probably be in the middle, number 2. I think Olynyk is a very good option because of his, I think he's shooting like 50-something% from 3. He's having an incredible season so far. But defensively, we've already seen the Kelly Bam front court, and although it was okay, like, it was still not working efficiently, which is why at the trade deadline they ended up flipping him, because and they got Ariza. Ariza wasn't really good either, but they've already experimented with the Kelly Bam front court, and I think that if they were to go back to a former player, to pair alongside Bam, it would be Jay rather than Kelly, because that front court had a lot more success. So I don't know if the Kelly deal is going to happen. Lauri Markkanen is another option. I just don't think the Jazz are going to trade him right now because of how he's playing. His value is going to be incredibly insane. He's playing like at an all-star caliber level right now, so I don't think that's going to happen. But that's the Utah Jazz. And then last but not least, we are on the final team with the Los Angeles Clippers, who have a plethora of wings. Now, obviously, they have Robert Covington, they have Nicholas Batum, and they have Marcus Morris. So like the three main players that, you know, could be of value to the Heat here, because they're all players who can play the forward position. They all have a certain archetype, 3 and D, and you know, Morris, Covington, and Batum, their contracts are different. Morris is making 16 mil, if I'm not mistaken. Covington's making 12 mil, and Batum is making 10 mil. Now, all of these deals would likely have to include Duncan Robinson, if I'm not mistaken. I think that, you know, just because of the money that they're making. Now, Morris and Batum are also free agents, if I'm not mistaken. I think they're on expiring contracts at the end of the season, while Covington recently signed an extension. So I don't know if Covington is actually eligible to be traded right now, because I think he just signed an extension with the Clippers in the offseason, but Morris and Batum are definitely eligible to get traded. So each one of those options would be pretty good. Again, if you were to rank those options, Batum I'd probably put last, because I think Batum, just because he's getting up there in age, I don't really know how serviceable that is right now. Like him getting Batum reminds me a lot of getting Ariza. I don't want to disrespect Batum. I think he's been a good quality role player over his career, but right now he's not really in the Clippers rotation. I don't really know how he's going to play this season, just because he's getting up there in age. So he would probably be last, and then Morris and Covington, I don't really, you know, prefer one or the other, but Covington is definitely a better defender, but Morris is a better shooter. So if you value shooting, you'd probably go for Morris. If you value defense, you'd go for Covington. But it's like flipping a coin. You can't really go wrong with either two. But yeah, that concludes the list. Again, a long list of players that are available for the Heat if they want to go, you know, make a trade. Again, I don't expect them to do anything right now. It's only been 11 games, but you know, if you want to go out and get a power forward or a front court partner for Bam, you have options. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the list, man. Let me know in the comment section below which option is your favorite, and if you guys want to rank them, you guys can rank them as well. But yeah, I'll see you guys later as always. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Peace.